Chen had always believed that brilliance could overcome any obstacle, but standing in the marble lobby of Sterling Enterprises, he wondered if he'd been naive. At 28, he possessed 2 PhD degrees in artificial intelligence and quantum computing, spoke 4 languages fluently, and had developed algorithms that could revolutionize data processing. Yet none of that seemed to matter when people first saw him. The security guard's eyes swept over him dismissively. "Delivery entrance is around back, buddy." The word stung, but Marcus had heard variations of this his entire life. He straightened his perfectly tailored suit, custom-made because nothing off the rack ever fit his 4'2" frame, and pulled out his phone to show the meeting confirmation. "I'm Dr. Marcus Chen. I have a 3 o'clock appointment with Ms. Sterling." His voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who had learned to command respect through competence rather than presence. The guard's expression shifted from dismissive to confused, then embarrassed. "Oh, sorry, doctor. Let me call up." Marcus had grown accustomed to these moments. The fumbling, the awkward apologies, the sudden overcorrection. He simply nodded and waited, his mind already focused on what lay ahead. Victoria Sterling. The name alone commanded attention in the tech world. At 32, she had built Sterling Enterprises from a garage startup into a $50 billion empire. Forbes called her the Iron Butterfly, beautiful, brilliant, and utterly ruthless in business. She was also notoriously private, rarely granting meetings to anyone outside her inner circle. The fact that she had agreed to see him was either a miracle or a mistake. Marcus's breakthrough in quantum neural networks had been gaining attention in academic circles, but translating theoretical research into commercial applications required resources he simply didn't have. Sterling Enterprises was his last hope after months of rejections from venture capitalists who couldn't see past his appearance to recognize the potential of his work. The elevator ride to the 47th floor felt eternal. Marcus reviewed his presentation one final time, knowing he would have perhaps 10 minutes to capture Victoria Sterling's attention before she dismissed him like all the others. His research could change everything. Artificial intelligence systems that learned and adapted at unprecedented speeds, quantum processing that could solve problems in minutes that currently took months. But first, he had to make her see him as more than just an anomaly in her carefully curated world. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area that looked more like a modern art museum than a corporate office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, while abstract sculptures and paintings created an atmosphere of sophisticated elegance. The receptionist, a tall woman with sharp cheekbones and an even sharper smile, barely glanced up from her computer. "Dr. Chen? Ms. Sterling will see you now. Conference room 3, down the hall to your right." Her tone was professionally neutral, but Marcus caught the slight narrowing of her eyes as she took in his appearance. He was used to it, the double takes, the poorly concealed stares, the whispered conversations that followed in his wake. Walking down the hallway, Marcus passed employees who turned to look, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed amusement. He had spent years building armor against such reactions, but it never stopped hurting entirely. What kept him moving forward was the knowledge that his mind was his greatest weapon, and today, he would need every bit of intellectual ammunition he possessed. The conference room door was already open. Inside, Victoria Sterling sat at the head of a glass table, her attention focused on a tablet screen. She was even more striking in person than in the countless magazine photos Marcus had seen. Auburn hair pulled back in an elegant chignon, wearing a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. When she looked up, her emerald eyes met his without the usual shock or awkward pause he had come to expect. "Dr. Chen, please, have a seat." Her voice was warm but businesslike, and Marcus noted that she didn't stand to shake hands, not out of rudeness, but because she seemed to understand that the gesture might emphasize their height difference in an uncomfortable way. It was a small consideration, but one that surprised him. As Marcus settled into his chair, adjusting it to reach the table properly, he felt Victoria's gaze studying him. Not the invasive staring he was accustomed to, but the analytical assessment of someone sizing up a potential business partner. For the first time in months, Marcus felt a spark of hope. Maybe this meeting would be different. Maybe she would see what others had missed. I've read your papers on quantum neural integration, Victoria said, setting her tablet aside. Brilliant work. I'm curious to hear how you envision translating this research into practical applications. Marcus smiled, feeling the familiar rush of excitement that came whenever he discussed his work. This was his element, not the boardrooms and power plays, but the realm of ideas and possibilities. Ms. Sterling, what if I told you that we could create AI systems that don't just process information, but truly understand it? Systems that could revolutionize everything from medical diagnosis to climate modeling to space exploration. He opened his laptop and began his presentation, his passion evident in every word. As he spoke, he noticed something remarkable. Victoria Sterling was listening. Really listening. Her questions were sharp, insightful, demonstrating a technical understanding that impressed even him. For 45 minutes, they discussed algorithms and processing architectures, market applications and potential obstacles. It was the most stimulating conversation Marcus had had in years. When he finished, Victoria leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. Your research is extraordinary, Dr. Chen. But I have to ask, why come to me? Why not pursue traditional academic funding or government grants? Marcus had anticipated this question, but he hadn't expected the directness of her gaze or the way she seemed to look right through his carefully prepared answer to the truth beneath. Because I want to change the world, not just write papers about it. And because... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Because I believe you understand what it's like to be underestimated. Something flickered in Victoria's eyes, surprise, perhaps, or recognition. The silence stretched between them, charged with an unexpected tension that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with the sudden, startling realization that they were seeing each other as more than just potential partners. Victoria Sterling had built her empire by trusting her instincts, and right now, every instinct was telling her that Marcus Chen was dangerous, not to her business, but to the carefully constructed wall she had built around her heart. She had agreed to this meeting as a favor to her MIT professor, Dr. Rodriguez, who had insisted that Chen's research was revolutionary. She hadn't expected to be impressed. She certainly hadn't expected to be attracted. Dr. Chen, she said, her voice carefully controlled, your proposal has merit, but Sterling Enterprises doesn't typically invest in early-stage research. We prefer proven technologies with clear market applications. It was a lie, and they both knew it. Sterling Enterprises had funded dozens of speculative projects, many with far less potential than Marcus's work. Marcus's expression didn't change, but Victoria caught the slight tightening around his eyes. I understand, he said quietly. Thank you for your time, Ms. Sterling. I know how valuable it is. As he began packing his laptop, Victoria felt an unexpected pang of regret. She was making a mistake, and worse, she was making it for all the wrong reasons. The truth was that Marcus's research was exactly the kind of breakthrough that could propel Sterling Enterprises into the next decade of technological dominance. But sitting across from him, watching the way his face lit up when he talked about his work, seeing the intelligence and passion in his dark eyes, she had felt something she hadn't experienced in years, genuine interest in another person. Victoria Sterling had learned early that showing weakness was a luxury she couldn't afford. Growing up as the daughter of a blue-collar mechanic, she had fought for every opportunity, every scholarship, every chance to prove herself in a world that expected her to be decorative rather than brilliant. She had built her company by being smarter, tougher, and more ruthless than anyone expected. Romance was a distraction she couldn't afford and had never wanted. Until now. Dr. Chen, wait. The words were out before she could stop them. Marcus paused at the door, turning back with a questioning look. Victoria felt her carefully maintained composure wavering. Your research, it really is extraordinary. Perhaps we could discuss it further over dinner. She saw the surprise in his eyes, followed quickly by something that looked like hope. But then his expression shuttered, and he shook his head slightly. Thank you, Ms. Sterling, but I don't think that would be appropriate. We both know this isn't about the research. His directness caught her off guard. Victoria was used to people dancing around uncomfortable truths, particularly when it came to her wealth and power. But Marcus was looking at her with an honesty that was both refreshing and terrifying. "You're right," she admitted, surprising herself. "It's not just about the research. But that doesn't mean the research isn't worth pursuing." Marcus studied her for a long moment. "Ms. Sterling, I've spent my entire life having people see me as a curiosity first and a person second. I won't be anyone's pet project or guilty conscience. If you're interested in my work, then let's talk about my work. If you're interested in something else." He shrugged, a gesture that somehow managed to be both vulnerable and dignified. "I'm not sure either of us is ready for that conversation." Victoria felt heat rise in her cheeks. When was the last time someone had spoken to her so plainly? When was the last time someone had seen through her corporate persona to the uncertainty beneath? "You're right again," she said. "I apologize. That was unprofessional of me." "It was human of you," Marcus corrected gently. "There's a difference." The simple statement hit Victoria harder than she expected. Human. When was the last time someone had seen her as simply human rather than as Victoria Sterling, the Ice Queen of Silicon Valley? The realization was both liberating and terrifying. "Dr. Chen," she said, making a decision that went against every business instinct she possessed, "I'd like to offer you a contract. 6 months, full funding for your research, with Sterling Enterprises as your exclusive commercial partner. We'll provide laboratory space, equipment, and a full research team." Marcus's eyes widened. "Ms. Sterling, that's incredibly generous, but I have to ask, why the change of heart?" Victoria met his gaze steadily. "Because you're right. Your research could change everything. And because—" She paused, then decided on honesty. "Because I think we could learn from each other." "Learn what?" "You could teach me to see past the surface. And maybe I could teach you that not everyone who shows interest is trying to diminish you." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and Victoria found herself holding her breath. Finally, he nodded. 6 months, he agreed. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "First, this is a professional arrangement. Whatever personal interest we might have in each other, we keep it separate from the work. Second, I maintain full creative control over my research. And third—" He hesitated, then forged ahead. "If you're doing this out of pity or some misguided attempt at charity, I'd rather you say so now." Victoria felt a smile tug at the corners of her mouth. "Dr. Chen, I didn't build a $50 billion company by making charity cases out of brilliant scientists. I'm doing this because I think your research could make us both very wealthy and because I think working together might be interesting." "Interesting," Marcus repeated, and Victoria caught the hint of a smile in his voice. "I can work with interesting." As they shook hands on the deal, Victoria felt a jolt of electricity at the contact. Marcus felt it too. She could see it in the way his breath caught slightly, in the way his eyes darkened. For a moment, neither of them moved, and the air between them crackled with possibility. Then Marcus stepped back, breaking the spell. "I'll have my lawyer review the contract," he said, his voice carefully professional. "Of course. I'll have it drawn up by tomorrow." Victoria straightened her jacket, trying to regain her composure. "I look forward to working with you, Dr. Chen." "Marcus," he said. "If we're going to be working together, you should call me Marcus." "Marcus," she repeated, liking the way his name felt on her tongue. "I'm Victoria." As Marcus left, Victoria stood at the window watching the city sprawl below, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. She had just made either the best business decision of her career or the most dangerous personal mistake of her life. Possibly both. What she didn't know was that Marcus was having the exact same thought as he rode the elevator down to the lobby, his heart racing with possibilities he had never dared to imagine. For the first time in his life, someone had seen past his physical differences to recognize not just his intellectual worth, but his worth as a person. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Neither of them noticed the figure in the shadows of the parking garage, taking photos with a telephoto lens, or the email being composed on a smartphone. Target acquired. Begin Phase 2. 3 weeks into their partnership, Victoria found herself looking forward to Marcus's daily research briefings with an anticipation that had nothing to do with quarterly profits and everything to do with the way his eyes lit up when he talked about breakthrough discoveries. Their working relationship had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Marcus spent his mornings in the state-of-the-art laboratory Victoria had equipped for him, and his afternoons in her private conference room, sharing his progress and brainstorming applications. What surprised Victoria most was how easily they had fallen into conversation beyond the technical aspects of the research. Marcus had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, and an insight into human nature that came from years of observing people who thought he wasn't worth noticing. He saw through her corporate armor to the driven, sometimes insecure woman beneath, and instead of using that knowledge as leverage, he simply accepted her as she was. The quantum processing arrays are exceeding all projections, Marcus reported, his laptop displaying complex data visualizations. We're seeing processing speeds that are literally off the charts. But there's something else, Victoria. The AI isn't just learning faster, it's learning differently. It's making intuitive leaps that shouldn't be possible with current programming. Victoria leaned forward, intrigued. Show me. Marcus pulled up a video of the AI system analyzing medical scans. We fed it 10,000 mammograms, both normal and abnormal. Standard AI would catalog patterns and match new scans against its database. But our system. He paused the video. It identified 3 cases that human radiologists had missed. Cancer so early it was barely detectable. But here's the extraordinary part. When we asked it to explain its reasoning, it couldn't. It just knew something was wrong. Intuition, Victoria breathed. You've created artificial intuition. That's what I think. And if I'm right, we're not just looking at a breakthrough in AI. We're looking at a completely new form of intelligence. Victoria sat back, her mind racing with possibilities. Medical diagnosis, financial analysis, climate prediction. The applications were limitless. But as she watched Marcus's excitement, she found herself distracted by details that had nothing to do with business. The way he ran his fingers through his dark hair when he was thinking, the animated gestures he made when explaining complex concepts, the genuine warmth in his smile when she asked an insightful question. Victoria. Marcus's voice brought her back to the present. You look like you're a million miles away. Sorry, I was just processing the implications. It wasn't entirely a lie. She was processing implications, just not the ones he meant. Marcus, this is incredible work. Have you considered the patent applications? The licensing potential. Something flickered across Marcus's face. Disappointment, perhaps? Of course. The commercial applications are significant. Victoria realized her mistake immediately. By focusing on the financial aspects, she had reduced his passionate research to mere profit potential. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to diminish what you've accomplished. It's just, this is how I think. Everything gets filtered through business implications first. I understand, Marcus said, but his tone had cooled slightly. It's your company. Profit is important. No, that's not. Victoria struggled to find the right words. Marcus, what you've created is extraordinary, not because of what it's worth, but because of what it represents. You've pushed the boundaries of what we thought was possible. The business implications are secondary to the scientific achievement. Marcus studied her for a moment, and Victoria felt exposed under his gaze. You really mean that, he said, sounding surprised. I do. I built this company because I love innovation, not just profit. Sometimes I think I've forgotten that along the way. Their eyes met and held, and Victoria felt that familiar electric charge in the air between them. This time, neither of them looked away immediately. The moment stretched, heavy with unspoken possibilities, until Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming call. He glanced at the screen and frowned. I should take this. It's my research partner from MIT. Of course. Victoria busied herself with papers while Marcus answered, but she couldn't help overhearing his side of the conversation. David? What do you mean, there's been a security breach? What kind of information? No, I haven't noticed anything unusual. Marcus's voice grew tense. Are you sure it was targeted? Okay, I'll review our protocols here. Thanks for the heads up. He hung up looking troubled. Is everything all right? Victoria asked. Someone hacked into the MIT servers and accessed my research files. David thinks it might have been corporate espionage, someone trying to steal the quantum neural integration algorithms. Victoria felt a chill of concern. Corporate espionage was a constant threat in the tech world, but something about this felt personal. How much information was compromised? Everything up to 3 weeks ago, right before I started working here. The current research is safe, but... Marcus paused. Victoria, there's something else. David said the hackers seemed particularly interested in information about me personally. My medical records, educational background, even my family history. That doesn't sound like typical corporate espionage, Victoria said slowly. That sounds like someone building a profile. Before Marcus could respond, Victoria's assistant knocked on the conference room door. Ms. Sterling? There's a James Morrison here to see you. He says it's urgent and concerns Dr. Chen. Victoria and Marcus exchanged glances. Send him in, Victoria said. James Morrison was everything Victoria disliked about certain types of businessmen: expensive suit, too white smile, and an air of barely concealed arrogance. He entered with the confidence of someone who believed his presence was a gift to those around him. Ms. Sterling, Dr. Chen, he said, his eyes lingering on Marcus with an expression that made Victoria's skin crawl. James Morrison, Morrison Dynamics. I think we need to talk. I'm not familiar with your company, Mr. Morrison, Victoria said coldly. We're a boutique consulting firm specializing in unique situations. Morrison's smile never wavered. Dr. Chen, I have to say, your work is quite impressive. So impressive, in fact, that several of my clients would be very interested in acquiring it. My research isn't for sale, Marcus said firmly. Oh, but everything is for sale, Doctor. It's just a matter of finding the right price. Morrison pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. That's what my clients are prepared to offer for your quantum neural algorithms. Victoria glanced at the screen and felt her breath catch. The number was staggering, enough to fund a dozen research projects, enough to set Marcus up for life. But when she looked at Marcus, she saw only disgust on his face. I said it's not for sale, Marcus repeated. Morrison's smile finally faltered. Dr. Chen, perhaps you don't understand the reality of your situation. You're a brilliant researcher, but you're also, let's be honest, not exactly corporate leadership material. My clients could provide you with unlimited funding, a team of assistants to handle the business side of things, and most importantly, they could ensure your research reaches its full potential without the complications of your current arrangement. The implications hit Victoria like a physical blow. Morrison wasn't just trying to buy Marcus's research. He was trying to exploit Marcus's insecurities about his appearance and his place in the corporate world. Get out, Victoria said, her voice deadly quiet. Ms. Sterling, I think you're being hasty. I said get out. Now. Before I have security escort you out. Morrison stood, his mask of civility slipping. This is a mistake, Ms. Sterling. Both of you are making a mistake. My clients don't like to be disappointed. After he left, the conference room fell silent. Marcus stared at the tablet Morrison had left behind, his expression unreadable. Marcus, Victoria said gently, you know he was trying to manipulate you, right? That everything he said was designed to make you doubt yourself. Was it? Marcus asked quietly. Victoria, be honest with me. Am I holding you back? Would you be better off licensing my research to someone else and letting them handle the development? Victoria felt something fierce and protective rise in her chest. Marcus, look at me. When he met her eyes, she continued. You are not holding anyone back. You are brilliant and dedicated, and the best research partner I've ever had. Morrison and his clients can go to hell. Marcus smiled for the first time since Morrison had arrived. You know, I think that's the first time I've heard you swear. It won't be the last if people keep underestimating you. Victoria realized what she had revealed in her vehement defense of Marcus, and felt heat rise in her cheeks. I mean, professionally speaking. Of course, Marcus said, but his eyes held a warmth that had nothing to do with professional courtesy. Professionally speaking. As Marcus gathered his things to leave for the day, Victoria watched him and realized that somewhere in the past 3 weeks, her feelings had shifted from professional interest to something much more dangerous. She cared about Marcus, not just his research but him. His happiness, his confidence, his dreams. It was terrifying and wonderful and completely against every rule she had set for herself. What she didn't know was that Marcus was having the exact same realization. And neither of them noticed the small listening device that James Morrison had placed under the conference table, or the fact that their every word was being transmitted to people who had no intention of taking no for an answer. The attack came at dawn on a Tuesday, swift and merciless in its precision. Victoria woke to her phone buzzing incessantly with calls from her head of security, her PR team, and her board of directors. The headlines were already trending on social media. Sterling Enterprises CEO's secret romance with dwarf scientist, and Billionaire's pet project, exploitation or love? The photos were everywhere, carefully cropped images of Victoria and Marcus in what appeared to be intimate moments, but which Victoria recognized as perfectly innocent interactions from their working sessions. A photo of Marcus reaching across the conference table to point at data on her laptop became inappropriate workplace conduct. A shot of Victoria smiling at something Marcus had said was captioned, Power Imbalance, when billionaires play God. But the most damaging content wasn't the photos, it was the leaked audio. Somehow, their private conversations had been recorded and edited to create a narrative of exploitation and condescension. Victoria heard her own voice saying, You could teach me to see past the surface, with Marcus's response, I won't be anyone's pet project removed, making it sound like she was treating him as a charity case. Marcus's passionate descriptions of his research were edited to sound like desperate pleas for funding, while Victoria's supportive responses were cut to make her sound patronizing. Victoria, you need to see this, her assistant Sarah said, bursting into her office with a tablet. The screen showed a live news interview with James Morrison, who was presenting himself as a whistleblower concerned about corporate exploitation. Dr. Chen is a brilliant scientist who deserves better than to be someone's exotic pet, Morrison was saying, his expression a mask of false concern. Ms. Sterling has a pattern of acquiring unusual businesses and individuals as trophies. This relationship is clearly unequal and potentially exploitative. Victoria felt sick. They had weaponized every insecurity Marcus had ever shared with her, every moment of vulnerability, and turned it into ammunition against both of them. Her phone rang, the board chairman. Victoria, we need to talk. Now. 20 minutes later, Victoria sat in the boardroom facing 12 of the most powerful people in Silicon Valley, all of whom looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. The board chairman, Robert Hayes, didn't waste time with pleasantries. Victoria, this is a disaster. The stock price has dropped 15% in 3 hours. We're trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons, and the PR nightmare is just beginning. Robert, you know this is manufactured controversy. I know that doesn't matter. Hayes slammed his hand on the table. Perception is reality in our business. Whether this is real or fabricated, whether your relationship with Dr. Chen is appropriate or not, the damage is done. Board member Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus, leaned forward. Victoria, we've supported you through every decision you've made, but this crosses a line. You've put the entire company at risk for a personal relationship. It's not a personal relationship, Victoria protested. even as the words felt like ashes in her mouth. Marcus is a research partner. His work could revolutionize AI technology. Then why didn't you disclose the nature of your partnership to the board? Asked another member. Victoria felt trapped. How could she explain that her feelings for Marcus had evolved beyond professional interest without confirming everything the media was saying? How could she protect him and the company when the truth was more complicated than either a pure business relationship or a simple romance? I want Dr. Chen's contract terminated immediately, Hayes said. We'll pay out the full 6 months, provide a generous severance, but he needs to be gone by the end of the week. No. Victoria's voice was quiet but firm. Marcus hasn't done anything wrong. His research is exactly what we contracted for. I won't destroy his career because of manufactured scandal. Then you're forcing us to make a choice, Victoria. Him or you. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Victoria looked around the table at faces she had known for years, people she had trusted, and saw only calculation and fear. None of them were considering what was right or just only what was profitable and safe. I need time to think, Victoria said finally. You have until tomorrow morning, Hayes replied. Either Dr. Chen goes, or we'll call for a vote of no confidence in your leadership. Victoria left the boardroom feeling hollowed out and desperate. She needed to talk to Marcus, to warn him, to figure out how to protect him from the storm that was coming. But when she reached his laboratory, she found it empty except for a security guard who looked uncomfortable. Where's Dr. Chen? She asked. Ms. Sterling, I was told to inform you that Dr. Chen has been temporarily barred from the building pending a security review. Victoria's heart sank. Barred by whose authority? Board order, ma'am. Came down an hour ago. Victoria tried calling Marcus, but his phone went straight to voicemail. She tried his apartment, but there was no answer. Panic began to set in, not for her company or her reputation, but for Marcus. How was he handling this? What was he thinking? Did he blame her for dragging him into this nightmare? She finally found him at the small coffee shop near his apartment, sitting alone at a corner table with an untouched cup growing cold in front of him. He looked up when she approached, and Victoria's heart broke at the expression in his eyes. Not anger, but resignation. Marcus, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Is it? He asked quietly. Victoria, I need you to be honest with me about something. And I mean completely honest. Victoria sat down across from him, dreading what was coming. Do you have feelings for me? Marcus asked. Not professional respect, not intellectual attraction, but actual feelings? Victoria felt the weight of the question. Answering honestly would confirm everything their enemies were claiming. Lying would protect them both professionally, but destroy something precious and fragile between them. Yes, she whispered. I do. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. And I have feelings for you. Which means they were right about one thing. This isn't just a professional relationship anymore. Marcus, that doesn't mean. It means everything, Victoria. Don't you see? Even if we never acted on those feelings, even if we kept everything completely professional, the feelings exist. And that changes the dynamic between us. Victoria reached across the table to touch his hand. It doesn't change the quality of your work or the value of your research. Doesn't it? Victoria, be honest. Would you have given me this opportunity if you hadn't been attracted to me? The question hit Victoria like a physical blow because she couldn't answer it with certainty. She had been attracted to Marcus from their first meeting, drawn to his intelligence and passion and unexpected humor. But she had also been genuinely impressed by his research. How could she separate those two things now? I don't know, she admitted. I can't untangle my professional judgment from my personal feelings anymore. But Marcus, your work speaks for itself. The quantum neural integration is revolutionary regardless of what I feel about you. But that's not how it looks to the world. And it's not how it looks to your board. Marcus pulled his hand away gently. Victoria, I heard about the ultimatum. Them or me. You heard wrong. There is no choice. I'm not letting them destroy your career over manufactured scandal. And I'm not letting you destroy your company over me. Marcus stood up. Victoria, you built something extraordinary. Sterling Enterprises employs thousands of people, funds dozens of research projects, and pushes the boundaries of technology. I won't be responsible for tearing that down. Marcus, please. I'm releasing you from my contract, he said quietly. And I'm giving you full rights to the quantum neural research we developed together. Use it, patent it, license it, whatever you need to do to protect your company. Victoria felt tears stinging her eyes. I don't want the research without you. And I don't want to be the reason you lose everything you've worked for. Marcus leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. Goodbye, Victoria. Build something beautiful with what we discovered together. As he walked away, Victoria realized that this was what heartbreak felt like. Not the dramatic pain of romance novels, but a quiet, devastating emptiness that made it hard to breathe. She had found someone who saw her as more than her wealth and power, someone who challenged her intellectually and accepted her emotionally, and she was watching him walk away to protect her from the consequences of caring about him. What she didn't know was that Marcus was fighting the same battle, forcing himself to keep walking when every instinct screamed at him to turn around and fight for what they had found together. And neither of them saw James Morrison watching from across the street, smiling with satisfaction as he made a phone call to report that Phase 3 was complete. Victoria Sterling had built her empire by being smarter and more ruthless than anyone expected, but sitting in her office at 3 in the morning, staring at the quantum neural research data that Marcus had left behind, she realized that all her business acumen meant nothing if she couldn't fight for what truly mattered. The board meeting was in 6 hours, and she had a choice to make: save her company by sacrificing Marcus, or risk everything for love. But as she studied Marcus's research notes, something caught her attention. Hidden in the code comments were subtle inconsistencies, small markers that seemed almost like signatures. Victoria's pulse quickened as she cross-referenced the markers with the leaked audio recordings. The pattern was unmistakable. Someone had been monitoring their conversations for weeks, but more than that, someone had been trying to steal Marcus's research. Victoria grabbed her phone and called her head of security. James, I need you to run a comprehensive sweep of the conference room where Dr. Chen and I have been meeting. Look for surveillance devices, and I need it done now. 2 hours later, James Chen, her security chief, not related to Marcus despite the shared surname, sat across from her with a collection of sophisticated listening devices and microcameras. Whoever planted these is a professional, he reported. Military-grade equipment, nearly undetectable. They've been recording everything for at least a month. Can you trace them? Already did. The signal traces back to a company called Morrison Dynamics. But Victoria, there's more. I did some digging on James Morrison himself. He's not a consultant, he's a corporate espionage specialist. His clients include several of our biggest competitors. Victoria felt the pieces clicking into place. The hacking of Marcus's MIT files, the carefully orchestrated media attack, Morrison's convenient appearance with an offer to buy Marcus's research, it had all been planned. They hadn't just been trying to steal the quantum neural algorithms, they had been trying to destroy the partnership that created them. James, I need you to prepare a presentation for the board meeting. Everything we've discovered about Morrison, the surveillance, the corporate espionage. And I need legal to prepare criminal charges against Morrison Dynamics for industrial espionage. Victoria, James said carefully, even if we can prove the surveillance and the media manipulation, it doesn't change the fact that you and Dr. Chen have feelings for each other. The board's concerns about professional boundaries are still valid. Victoria looked at the research data spread across her desk. Algorithms that could revolutionize artificial intelligence, breakthrough discoveries that represented months of collaborative genius. James, what if I told you that the greatest innovations in history came from partnerships that transcended purely professional boundaries? Watson and Crick, Jobs and Wozniak, Marie and Pierre Curie. Great science often comes from great partnerships, whatever form those partnerships take. I'd say you're fighting an uphill battle against decades of corporate policy. Then I guess I better be prepared to fight. At 9 a.m. sharp, Victoria walked into the boardroom carrying a tablet and wearing the same charcoal suit she had worn the day she first met Marcus. The board members looked grim, clearly expecting a capitulation. Robert Hayes didn't waste time with pleasantries. Victoria, I hope you've come to your senses. This company cannot afford. Robert, Victoria interrupted, before we discuss Dr. Chen's future with this company, I think you need to see something. She activated the wall display and began her presentation. 3 hours ago, our security team discovered sophisticated surveillance equipment in my conference room. Equipment that has been recording our private business discussions for over a month. The room fell silent as Victoria displayed photos of the listening devices and cameras. The equipment traces back to Morrison Dynamics, a corporate espionage firm working for our competitors. Every private conversation Dr. Chen and I had about his research was recorded and transmitted to our business rivals. Board member Sarah Chen leaned forward. Are you saying the media stories were fabricated? I'm saying they were weaponized, Victoria replied. The audio recordings were real, but they were obtained illegally and edited to create a false narrative. Someone wanted to destroy our partnership with Dr. Chen badly enough to commit multiple felonies to do it. Victoria clicked to the next slide, showing financial data. Dr. Chen's quantum neural research represents potentially the most valuable innovation in artificial intelligence in the past decade. Conservative estimates put its market value at over $10 billion. Our competitors weren't just trying to embarrass us, they were trying to steal the most valuable intellectual property we've ever developed. Even so, Hayes said, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction, the personal relationship between you and Dr. Chen still presents a conflict of interest. Victoria had been dreading this moment, but she met Hayes's gaze steadily. You're right. It does. Dr. Chen and I have developed feelings for each other that go beyond professional partnership. We've never acted on those feelings inappropriately, but they exist. The admission caused a stir around the table, but Victoria continued. However, I want you to consider something. Marie and Pierre Curie revolutionized physics and chemistry as partners in both science and life. Their personal relationship didn't diminish their professional achievements, it enhanced them. Some of the greatest innovations in history have come from partnerships that transcended traditional professional boundaries. This isn't the 19th century, Victoria, Hayes replied. We have policies, legal requirements, which we can address, Victoria said. I propose we establish new protocols for research partnerships that include personal relationships, full disclosure, regular third-party evaluation of professional decisions, clear separation between personal and business finances. We can set the standard for how companies handle these situations rather than running from them. Victoria clicked to her final slide. But here's what I won't do. I won't sacrifice the most brilliant researcher I've ever worked with because we're afraid of what people might think. Dr. Chen's work could revolutionize medical diagnosis, climate modeling, space exploration, applications that could benefit millions of people. Are we really going to let that slip away because of corporate espionage and manufactured scandal? The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, board member David Kim spoke up. Victoria, what you're proposing is unprecedented. The legal and PR risks are enormous. So is the potential reward, Victoria replied. And frankly, after what happened yesterday, I think we owe Dr. Chen more than just an apology. We owe him the chance to complete his work without being victimized again. Hayes looked around the table at the other board members. I want to discuss this privately. Victoria, give us an hour. As Victoria left the boardroom, she realized that she had done everything she could professionally. Now she needed to do something far more difficult. She needed to find Marcus and convince him that they could find a way to make this work. She found him in his apartment, surrounded by boxes. He was packing. Running away? She asked from the doorway. Marcus looked up, and Victoria saw that he looked as exhausted as she felt. Going back to MIT. David offered me my old position back, and after yesterday, it seems like the smart choice. The safe choice, Victoria corrected. Not necessarily the smart one. Marcus stood up, wiping dust from his hands. Victoria, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in damage control mode? I am in damage control mode. I'm trying to prevent the most important person in my life from disappearing. Victoria stepped into the apartment, closing the door behind her. Marcus, we were set up. The surveillance, the media leak, Morrison's offer, it was all coordinated corporate espionage. She explained everything her security team had discovered, watching Marcus's expression shift from resignation to anger to something that looked like hope. They used our feelings against us, Marcus said quietly. Turned something beautiful into a weapon. Only if we let them, Victoria replied. Marcus, I presented a proposal to the board this morning. New protocols for research partnerships, full transparency, third-party oversight. A way for us to work together professionally while acknowledging our personal feelings. Marcus stared at her. You risked your company for me. I risked my company for us. For what we could build together, both professionally and personally. Victoria moved closer, her heart racing. Marcus, I love you. Not because you're brilliant, not because of your research, but because of who you are. You see the world differently than anyone I've met. You challenge me to be better, to think beyond profit margins and quarterly reports. You make me want to be the person I was before I became Victoria Sterling, CEO. Marcus's eyes filled with emotion. Victoria, I love you too. But loving you scares me more than anything I've ever faced. What if people are right? What if this is just you trying to save someone you see as damaged? Victoria reached up and cupped his face in her hands. Marcus Chen, you are not damaged. You are not a charity case. You are not a pet project. You are a brilliant, passionate, extraordinary man who has made me believe in possibilities I never imagined. And if you'll have me, I want to explore every one of those possibilities with you. Marcus leaned into her touch, his defenses finally crumbling. What about your board? Your company? Let me worry about that. The question is, do you want to try? Can you trust that what we have is real and worth fighting for? Instead of answering with words, Marcus kissed her. It was soft and tentative at first, then deeper as months of suppressed emotion poured out between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Now we go back to work, Victoria said with a smile. We finish your research, we change the world, and we figure out how to love each other while we do it. Marcus laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in days. You make it sound simple. The simple parts are the best parts, Victoria replied. It's the complicated parts that make it interesting. 2 hours later, Victoria's phone rang. It was Robert Hayes. Victoria, the board has reached a decision. We're accepting your proposal for new partnership protocols, with conditions. Full disclosure of all personal relationships, quarterly reviews by independent parties, and clear financial separation between personal and professional interests. Victoria felt a surge of relief and triumph. Agreed. All of it. There's one more thing, Hayes continued. We want Dr. Chen to present his research to the full board next week. If his work is as revolutionary as you claim, we want to hear it directly from him. He'll be there, Victoria promised. As she hung up, Marcus looked at her with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. So we're really doing this? Professional partnership with personal complications. We're doing this, Victoria confirmed. Though I prefer to think of them as personal enhancements rather than complications. Marcus pulled her close, and Victoria marveled at how perfectly she fit against him, despite their height difference. You know, he said, when I walked into your office 6 weeks ago, I never imagined it would lead to this. What did you imagine? Best case scenario? You'd fund my research, and I'd disappear back into academic obscurity. Marcus smiled. I never imagined I'd find someone who saw me as more than just my work or my physical differences. Someone who saw me as just me. And I never imagined I'd find someone who could see past my wealth and power to the person underneath, Victoria replied. Someone who could challenge me intellectually and accept me emotionally. They stood there in Marcus's half-packed apartment, surrounded by boxes and possibilities, knowing that they faced months of scrutiny, professional challenges, and public attention. But they also knew they had something rare and precious, a partnership built on mutual respect, intellectual compatibility, and genuine love. 6 months later, the quantum neural AI system developed by Dr. Marcus Chen and funded by Sterling Enterprises would revolutionize medical diagnosis, leading to the early detection and treatment of diseases that had previously been considered untreatable. The technology would eventually be licensed to hospitals worldwide, saving hundreds of thousands of lives and generating billions in revenue. But more importantly, Victoria Sterling and Marcus Chen would prove that extraordinary partnerships could transcend traditional boundaries, that love and respect could coexist with professional excellence, and that the most valuable innovations often came from the courage to see people as more than the sum of their obvious characteristics. The bullied dwarf man who had walked into a billionaire's office had indeed changed everything, not just through his brilliant research, but by showing that true connection happens when people see past surfaces to recognize the extraordinary potential in each other. And the billionaire who had taken a chance on an unconventional partnership had discovered that the greatest innovations in life, like the greatest innovations in science, required the courage to venture into uncharted territory. Their love story became legendary in Silicon Valley, not because it was perfect, but because it was real, complicated, challenging, and ultimately transformative for everyone it touched. And years later, when young entrepreneurs and researchers would ask them for advice about balancing professional ambition with personal happiness, they would always give the same answer: see the person, not just the potential. Trust the connection, not just the contract. And never be afraid to fight for what matters most. In the end, Marcus had been right about one thing. When he walked into Victoria's office that day, no one had expected what happened next. Least of all the two people whose lives were forever changed by the courage to look beyond the obvious and discover the extraordinary.